This Ki Gohan transformed. Glancing over from afar, they saw Son Gohan was full of grief and anger. The tattered coat outside had flickered with a crystal electric aura. Seeing this scene, all of them were a shock. Kakaroto's child actually, Vegeta's face was stunned. This form did this kid break through to Super Saiyan 2? It was also too far-fetched. However, the state of intertwined electric awnings was the Super Saiyan 2. Gohan. Son Goku looked to him with relief. With his companions falling one by one, his heart was like a torment, and at this moment, Son Gohan's breakthrough made him very cheerful. I looked at the Super Saiyan 2 state of Son Gohan, and froze to get out of the way. Watching him step by step slowly went forward. I want to give Uncle Piccolo revenge. Until he walked in front of the androids, reacted, looking anxious shouted, "Hey, I still have one cell here." But at this time, Son Gohan had been dominated by anger, simply ignored her. Feeling ignored, gritted her teeth and said fiercely, "Even that guy Gohan has become Super Saiyan 2, how can I fall behind as Mama's daughter? I can't be left behind." There was an angry roar, and lightning lit up around No way, has actually broken through too. Are all the kids so powerful nowadays? Ayaba had some disbelief, then shook her head, her gaze firmed up, so that makes 5 Super Saiyan 2, things are finally a little better. Well, let's hurry up and solve these guys, then I can go. This side, Vegeta looked at Trunks, his face was sullen. Why is this? Why are they all turning into Super Saiyan 2? Trunks' forehead was sweating a little, resentfully said, "This I do not know." Raging whirlwinds continued to sweep across the earth that had been leveled by the energy. In the palace's doorway, the host boldly stuck his head outside, but the storm outside was like a sharp knife. The sharpness was simply not something he could bear, so he had to shrink his head back. Even so, the clothes on the crowd was still blown to snap and shake. The host, holding the microphone in one hand and leaning on his mouth with a notebook in the other, shouted heartily. "Viewers, the cyclone outside has become chaotic because of the martial artists' battle. Just a moment ago, I actually had a feeling of suffocation. If not for the protection of this magical palace, we simply could not have survived here." Although having been in the middle of the battle, Ayaka always paid attention to Son Goku in other situation. Seeing Son Gohan and break through one after another, she smiled, "Hey, now a few small lightning cell will be wiped out sooner or later, your expectations will be dashed." Humph. Cell ironically did not say anything. The indignation in his heart turned into a sharp attack on Ayaka. Those 2 small Saiyan breakthrough into Super Saiyan 2, unexpectedly disrupted his rhythm, but the good thing was that it did not detach too much. It was only 2 who turned into the Super Saiyan 2. How could he be put in his eyes? Cell floated a dozen meters off the ground, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. His handsome cheeks outlined in a mocking smile. Suddenly, a flash of light crossed the void. Ayaka and Cell coincidentally struck one after another. 2 light flashed back and forth in the sky, intersecting with each other from time to time, emitting a sharp flash as well as a loud sound of striking. The battle between Ayaka and Cell was not yet divided into winners and losers, each trying to suppress the other. Death Beam. Peanut Rice Fireball flashed a few times in mid-air, straight into a huge fireball with a radius of 100 meters. This was the traditional attack of the Frozen Clan, and this move had destroyed many planets. Ayaka secretly shook her head. She had seen a lot of this move and did not take it to heart. The bright light flashed, leaving a vacuum blade trajectory in the air. The entire surface of the death beam cracked a pattern. The crack expanded, it had been cut into 2 pieces across. Rumble, a violent explosion, the death beam destroyed in the air. After destroying the not fully formed death beam, Ayaka did not rest for a moment, flew up, thump 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 toward Cell to greet the past. With the powerful combat instincts of the unsighted, the flowing attack was completed in one go, and it was once pinned down Cell. But the battlefield was always changing rapidly, not to mention that the opponent was the powerful Azure Shalu, and it was unrealistic to expect to keep him pinned down. He was like an arrow, weaving quickly, turning back and forth at different points in the air, his residual shadow linking up like a constellation of folds. Go to hell. A light blue ki wave emitted from her palm. The huge whirlwind of energy immediately wrapped her entire body. Bang! There was a loud bang, but it was Cell swinging his iron fist. The air was drummed and buzzed. In a hurry, Ayaka hastily retracted both arms to try to defend. The lightning bolt of crazy force hit Ayaka. She shouted, her whole body flew out like a meteor. Steadying her body, she gently swabbed away the blood, and a hot pain came from her right wrist. She moved her injured right hand and sighed in her heart. Fortunately, I have the intuition provided by the unsighted, otherwise I'm really no match for Cell. This battle must be quick. If she waited for Cell to adapt to the power at this moment, it would be more difficult to deal with. In Ayaka's secret thoughts for how to subdue Cell, a young girl's figure flashed, while a clear voice sounded, "Sister, I'll help you deal with Cell." It was Ayaba. Ayaka's eyes lit up, when Ayaba's figure had come to the side. It turned out that unknowingly the small cells surrounding her had all been solved by her, and the remaining few small cell. With the combined attack of Son Goku, Son Gohan, and Iam, the victory was about to be decided. You came at the right time. Ayaka shouted with joy. But the opposite Cell, his face was more ugly. His gloomy cheeks as if splashed with a layer of green dye, more alien. One, Ayaba, was still difficult to deal with, but added another, was he going to repeat the defeat at the hands of Ayaba? No. I will not fail. I had failed once, I would never fail a second time. Ayaba, let's attack from both sides and crush him in the shortest possible time. Ayaba nodded her head forcefully, a soft smile appeared on her pretty face, and the two of them looked at each other and launched their attacks at the same time. Pop! The rhythmic sound of strikes kept ringing out, and under the tacit cooperation of the two Ayaba, Cell slowly became passive. The two Ayaba combined, the ghostly attack method makes Cell a little fumbling, frequently suffered their attacks, but little opportunity to counterattack. The passive situation made him get irritated. Bastard! Big bang attack! Cell's face twisted, the azure armor chatter, and a cluster of front red transparent light from the palm of the fly. The light was so thin and transparent that it would have been undetectable had it not been for the speed and the slight distortion caused by the front end rubbing against the air. Ayaba and Ayaka's eyesight was naturally very sharp, the slightest change could be seen, and they reacted in unison, retreating between lightning and fire and pulling away from Cell. Ki blast! Kamehameha! Two beams of energy counterattacked the past, and a long rumbling sound erupted when they collided. Along with the dense stream of vectors, a huge dark red mushroom cloud rose in place. A thick wall of smoke and dust formed, followed by an inside-out explosion that slammed outward. The mushroom cloud and thick wall of gas burst in all directions, radiating in all directions, and the vast earth was scraped away, presenting an appallingly huge crater. Go to hell! Cell roared with fierce eyes, rubbing his hands together in quickly converging black balls of ki wave. It trembled with a chilling and terrifying energy flickering on it. Death beam! The blood-red golden eyes ruthlessly sweeping, a cold bloody murderous aura to the cage was instantly inverted down, along with the death beam thrown, scorching breath through a strong taste of death. The powerful energy erosion of the space around the ki ball some distortion, this moment, the sky seemed to collapse down. Ayaka looked up and saw this scene, her body shook, she realized that Cell was desperate. The black ki ball was extremely large in diameter, containing how extensive the energy and this ki ball was directed at her. Gritting her teeth, she nodded firmly towards Ayaba and began to gather all the energy in her body. Thunder shock surprise. Heavenly thunder shock surprise. The silvery electric tangled energy held forward, the eye-catching bright light danced in the air, as if a pair of phoenixes spreading their wings to fly, displaying a proud aura and astonishing lightning to meet the attack. Boom! The powerful and invincible Thunder Phoenix slammed into the oncoming hellish energy cannon, and in an instant, a loud sound resounded through heaven and earth. Rumble! The sky was hazy and chaotic, the sun became dim at this moment, the planet began to shake violently, and even the distant Kai's planet shook vaguely. In the center of the lookout, the soft energy spun up madly to avoid the earth from suffering heavy damage. Hissing, the blue energy was covered with electric aura around it, emitting numbing ghostly blue arcs around it, gradually overshadowing the black ball of death, and the hellish energy cannon was pushed back under the combined force of Ayaba and Ayaka. No! There was a heartbreaking shout, the azure cell was full of reluctance, his face distorted by the raging energy engulfed. Under the huge lightning shock wave, the body was disintegrated a little, followed by another round of terrifying explosions into pieces. Cell disappeared. After the key sense searched the surrounding area, there was no sign of his rebirth. To be sure that Cell was truly eliminated, Ayaka took a long breath, took out a senzu bean, put it in his mouth, chewed, and swallowed it. A warm stream flowed out, like spring rain moistening a dry field, and the discomfort left by fighting with Cell disappeared in a moment. Ayaba was also lightly brushing her chest and nodded with a palpitating heart. This azure cell was too scarred. If the two of them did not join forces in the nick of time to make a combined attack, sparring energy to destroy him, who won and who lost was uncertain. Ayaka calmed down, even more afraid. In case Ayaba had not come to her world, she faced the azure cell alone, the consequences might be a tragedy. With the azure cell destroyed, those small cells split by him also quickly lost their lives and turned into a pile of dust. Finally, it's over. Like a burdened sigh, Son Goku exited the Super Saiyan transformation. His body leaned back on the ground, already exhausted. Son Gohan and I exit the transformation, a huge sense of fatigue hit, the two of them both pass out. As they were about to fall to the ground, two shadows flashed by. Android 17 and 18 steadily caught their bodies and moved over to the open space. It's great that Miss Ayaba eliminated Cell, so that this world is saved. Trunks said with a smile on his face. Looking at the silent Vegeta, he smartly shut his mouth. He understood Vegeta's current mood, being exceeded by two small children. For Vegeta, who had such a pride, it was a massive blow. It was better not to stimulate him at this time. Vegeta walked in the direction of the rendezvous with his head sullenly, passing by Trunks when he tapped his shoulder without a trace, stopped, and said, "You did well this time." After hearing this, Trunks froze, standing there in disbelief, and it took a while to react, with a delighted smile on his face. Everyone converged together. Ayaka took out the senzu beans to distribute to them, and soon everyone regained their energy. When Son Goku came to see Android 18, except for some tattered clothes on their bodies, they did not have a bit of fatigue, and said with a sigh of admiration, "The perpetual motion type energy can be really powerful, the energy is not a bit weakened after such a fierce battle." They then looked toward the body of the androids, agreeing very much with Son Goku's words. Although this crisis has passed without danger, Krillin and others had been sacrificed. Mr. Popo should have collected the Dragon Balls. Go back and let them resurrect. Ayaka opened his mouth and said. The crowd nodded in silence. Fighting with the strong naturally came with a crisis. Before participating in the Cell game, they had been prepared to sacrifice. Although the sacrifice of Krillin and others made them a little gloomy, the good news was that it was not meaningless. They defended the Earth. They were heroes. And they could use the Dragon Balls to revive them, the great fortune of misfortune. Son Goku urged, "In that case, let's hurry back. I'm afraid I cannot go back for a moment." Followed the gaze skimming, sneaking out of the Ice King's palace, braving the sand, wind, and dust running towards them. Not long after, the host ran to Son Goku, panting and looking around, holding up the microphone, and asked, Mr. Goku, I see that the storm outside gradually subsided, and you all stopped moving. Is it true that Cell has been destroyed?" Son Goku said truthfully, "Yes, Cell has been eliminated by us. How to announce the news next is left to you." With that, Son Goku teleported to the side of Krillin and others' corpses, carrying them up into the air and fly. Subsequently, Vegeta, Trunks, Android 16, 17, 18 also left one after another. They did not want too much contact with these ordinary people, only felt that there was little need for contact. Ayaka pulled Ayaba to the host, nodded gently, closed the Ice King Palace, followed the transient, and disappeared. The host saw that it was too late to say thank you. At that moment of admiration, he gratefully bowed a few times in the direction of their departure. This was the true martial artist style. After giving a few instructions to the camera crew, the host then excitedly announced to the camera that Cell had been eliminated. At the same time, the general casualty situation was briefly communicated. The host's speech was spread around the world via satellite, and everyone cheered with excitement after knowing that peace had been restored to the world. In the television, the camera swept across the wide gray and yellow wasteland one by one. Without the interference of external energy, the high-tech camera played its role. In the super clear resolution, the huge impact craters and dauntingly horrific fissures created a powerful visual impact that shook the heart and soul. Look, these shocking views, who would have thought it was a small green and tree-lined country town before, and from this beautiful and brutal picture, you can see the intensity of this battle. The power of Cell is far beyond imagination. If not for these martial artists defending peace with their lives and blood, the earth would have entered the end of days. After seeing the images on the screen clearly, everyone sucked in cold air and was speechless for a long time. The smallest of those huge impact craters was 100 meters in diameter, while the largest was tens of thousands of meters wide and nearly 1,000 meters deep. The wisps of hot magma that kept flowing outward were still emitting scalding heat. Not to mention the cracks that stretched for thousands of meters, like a giant blade cutting through the sky and cutting the earth in two from the air. Terrible, look at those explosion craters. Even nuclear bombing can't get that kind of effect. Oh, no, it turns out that powerful martial artists are so powerful. I want to go and learn from a master. Some people couldn't resist the impulse in their hearts. You. Come on, Mr. Son Goku is not going to take you as an apprentice. One person splashed water. Mr. Son Goku is not a master I hope to be. As long as I can enter a slightly stronger martial arts school, I will be satisfied. The previous dynamic battle gave people a feeling of shock, but it seemed too unreal. At the moment, through the static picture, people really experienced the chill emanating from the depths of the soul. Immediately, the world once again rolled up a frenzy to learn the art and was more intense than the martial arts boom a few years ago. It was not known how many people were able to get what they wanted. The Pantheon, the corpses of Krillin, Yamaha, Tian Shinhan, Kaiatsu, and Piccolo were lined up, and then Shinran was summoned. Because the Shinran created by Den could have fulfilled 3 wishes, but to resurrect more than one person at a time, the Dragon Ball was set to fulfill 2 wishes when it was manufactured. Relatively, each wish efficacy was more powerful. The first wish, those who were killed by Cell, even if they lose their physical bodies, were revived. The second wish, Ayaka, as in the original, let Shinran dismantle the bombs inside Android 17 and 18. After dismantling the bombs in the body, Android 18 had no place to go. They stayed and lived with Ayaba and Ayaka in the lookout. Because of the reverence for nature, Android 16 refused everyone's invitation and traveled alone around the world, finally settling down in the small village where the northern Android 8 lived. With so many people at home all of a sudden, IM began to look unhappy and finally accepted the reality under the enticement of Android 18. A few days later, at Bulma's home in the West City, everyone gathered together, and Trunks was about to return to his world. Bulma's home was very large. The backyard of the villa was green grass, surrounded by several large trees planted, lush and leafy. A side bonsai red and green blooming with colorful flowers, the little red and white pistil, as quiet as a virgin, like the stars shining dotted the night sky. Ayaka and other people dressed formally, smiling at Ayaba and Trunks as they said goodbye. Trunks, if you had not informed us about the android, we are afraid that there is no way to stop him so quickly. Thank you very much. Son Goku patted the shoulder of Trunks, his tone sincere. Trunks shook his head in embarrassment. Mr. Goku, don't you say that, even without my arrival, with Miss Ayaba and Miss Ayaka, android is not a problem, not to mention that the android in this world are completely different from where I am. He said, his eyes swept over Android 17 and 18. Android 18, wearing a casual jacket with buttons out, a pair of jeans underneath, and 2 hands in his jacket pockets, noticed Trunks' gaze and asked, "Are android bad where you come from?" Trunks nodded, thinking of the desperate world of the future, said with a low face, "In my place, you are bad very thoroughly, Vegeta, Piccolo, Krillin, all the warriors were killed by you one after another, the whole world is shrouded in darkness, bloodshed and destruction never stop, Android 17 always fooling mortals, and 18 would slaughter entire cities for losing video games." We're that bad? Android 18 was taken aback. Android 17 then objected somewhat, how could someone as ladylike as me be so completely bad? After all, it's a different world, and the personalities may differ, and in my place, Android 17 is a man. Really? Android 17 shouted with interest, and her luscious body leaned on Android 18, the scarf tied around the neck fluttered with the breeze, her chin rested on the shoulder of Android 18, and she said with an ambiguous face, "Is it handsome? Did you take Android 18 down?" Trunks' face was sweating, said sarcastically, "You are a sister and brother, this I'm afraid there is no." Ugh, so useless. I thought the man-me would be a little more charming. Android 17 said with slight disappointment. Pa. Android 18 nonchalantly through Android 17, "You guys do not listen to Android 17. It's nonsense. This guy does not have a brain." The girl was again crazy. She had gotten to know Android 17's character over the past few days. She knew that she had a crazy personality. "Trunks, with your current strength, it's more than enough to deal with the androids. I wish you peace soon." Ayaka said seriously. "Thank you, Miss Ayaka, and I will work hard." Trunks said confidently. Although his performance in the Cell game was not outstanding, the strength was not to be underestimated. He had far exceeded Android 18 and 17, and there was no longer any pressure to deal with Android, whose strength was not as strong as this world. At this time, Bulma handed over the little Trunks in his arms to Dr. Brief, came over and sorted out Trunks' clothes, reluctantly said, "Trunks, go back to take good care of your mother there. We will miss you." "Yes." Trunks loudly answered and then jumped on the time machine. There was a poof sound, the time machine slowly flew up, through the transparent glass cover, Trunks waved goodbye to Ayaka and others. Then saw Vegeta leaning against the tree, silent. Trunks nodded to him but suddenly saw Vegeta raise 2 fingers at him, showing the meaning of, "Take care, have a good trip." Seeing Vegeta was not good at saying goodbye way, Trunks's heart immediately flowed out of a hot stream. His face overflowed with smiles, returned a salute to Vegeta, father, and son with a special way to communicate. After that, a distortion rose around the time machine and disappeared into the air. A few months later, the Dragon Ball warriors re-embarked on their respective journeys. The world again showed a prosperous scene. The people who died because of sorrow came back to life, and the power of the dragon gradually erased the trauma caused by the android incident, but the shock caused by the Cell game was difficult to erase. This time, unlike the previous Saiyan invasion, the martial arts trend was not just a momentary one, but a growing one, with no intention of cooling down. Taking this opportunity, under the king's order, the government consciously interfered, and the high-definition video of the Cell game was made into DVD discs for launch. These DVD discs were captured and filmed live by ultra-high-speed HD cameras, very full and complete, not censored as in the previous live broadcast. As a result, people who were lucky enough to purchase the full set of DVDs and witness the full battle of the Cell game became even more fanatical and became firm supporters of martial arts. It could be said that now, regardless of men and women, young and old, all walks of life know that Save the Earth's Son Goku and all Dragon Ball warriors. Especially the young people, simply said Son Goku was their idol. Ayaba, Ayaka, Android 18, Android 17 soared in popularity and became the dream girl of all men. With the event of Cell Games as the node, a whole new era opened up. In the vicinity of the mountain range where Mount Paozu was located, a large loader and transporter with a long dragon slowly advanced towards the mountain with the engineering team. On the frontmost military plane, the king sat down for a nap in his seat and said to the adjutant beside him, "Will Mr. Goku blame us for coming here with such a big crowd?" The adjutant smiled calmly and said, "Opening a school has a long history. As a generation of patriarchs and a disciple of the Turtle School, surely he would want to let his school flourish, and since the king personally requested it, I don't think Mr. Goku would refuse. After so many crises, we should face up to the great strength of martial artists and train more martial arts powerhouses for the earth. Taking advantage of this current martial arts trend, let's take all the plans out. Build a series of huge ring-shaped cities centered on Mount Paozu and named after Mr. Goku and his partners, in which major martial arts schools will be open to train potential martial artists, and it would be even better if Mr. Goku and his partners could instruct them occasionally." This idea was the result of the king's deep consideration. With the occurrence of one crisis after another, he increasingly understood the ability of the martial artists, but he could not rely on Son Goku and others to solve everything. As the highest government official, he had the responsibility to guard the peace of the world. To implement martial arts on a large scale, the support of martial artists couldn't be missing. As the strongest group of people in the world, Son Goku and others who transcended the realm of ordinary martial artists were the objects the king had to visit. With their support, the king's plan could be fully developed. The king's luck was good, just arrived at the Baozi mountain when Son Goku happened to return from outside. Hearing that the king intends to implement martial arts around the world, Son Goku very much agrees. Once the earth opened the era of martial arts, some potential martial arts enthusiasts would have the possibility of promotion, martial arts thriving to form a virtuous cycle. But these had a prerequisite: there must be a martial artist to lead them to get started. Looking at the king's intention, he hoped that he could become the leader of the opening of the era of martial arts. This made Son Goku hard. His strength was strong, he also had some experience in guiding practice, but he did not have time to teach those who did not even enter the martial arts door. When it came to educating newcomers, no one was more suitable than Master Roshi, but Master Roshi was old after all. Son Goku did not want to bother him. Son Goku explained these things to the king. The king said with a smile, "When the surrounding cities are completed, the government will hire martial artists from all over the world, they will carry out basic education, it does not need Mr. Goku to appear, Mr. Goku just can occasionally take the time to come out to point out." Several lieutenants beside the king stepped forward and spread a wide sheet of record paper on the round table and said, "This is the government's plan for the martial arts cities. When the time comes, we will build 12 satellite cities with Mount Paozu as the center, and the 12 cities will be connected into a ring and will be named after Mr. Goku and your companions." Son Goku curiously looked at the design. The ring-shaped city structure was divided into 12 areas of construction, and the design is marked in detail. 12 cities would be named after Son Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Ayaba, Ayaka, Android 17, and 18, Krillin, Yamcha, Tien Shinhan, Kaiotsu, and Master Roshi. Master Roshi, as the god of martial arts, Son Goku, Krillin, and other people's enlightenment teacher, was very honored to become a representative of the city, while I am and Son Gohan, because of the age of young, for growth considerations did not disclose their identity. The design of the plan was unprecedentedly large, and some of the designs even needed to directly raise the mountain range where Mount Paozu was to build, extremely difficult. Once completed, the 12 cities would house at least 10 million people and would be a great mecca for martial arts enthusiasts. With the government's ability, these cities will be completed in a year's time, and each martial arts school will be opened with martial artists from around the world in charge of teaching the arts. We will set up the main dojo in each city specifically for Mr. Goku and your companions, and we hope that you, Mr. Goku, will take the time to give some instruction to potential martial artists. The king had put it to this point, and Son Goku was also embarrassed to refuse. Anyway, he only occasionally took time to go, and it would not affect his training, so he readily agreed. Seeing Son Goku nod in agreement, the king and other government officials were overjoyed. In return, Son Goku would become the honorary mayor of Goku City after completing the usual day-to-day matters that would be managed by the acting mayor. He just needs to hang a name to receive a high monthly salary reward on it. The king's plane, whirring, took off. The back of the engineering team received instructions to start blasting construction. Everything was in full swing. For Son Goku to become the honorary mayor, the happiest was none other than Chi-Chi. Her husband was considered success and fame. Her son's education in the governance arrangements would be smooth sailing. Every time she thought of these, tears of joy, happy life finally came. One day she was actually living the life of a celebrity wife. A year had passed quietly, and the changes in Mount Paozu could be described as ever-changing. In addition to the 50 kilometers of the original forest, which was the center of the mountain, 12 advanced cities had been built around it. Located between the mountains, the bustling city with its high-rise buildings was in stark contrast to the ancient, quiet, and beautiful Mount Paozu. A radius of 50 kilometers belongs to Son Goku's private territory, and no one was allowed to barge in and disturb Mr. Goku's life. The main streets and alleys, in addition to the customary and quaint various martial arts dojo, were the most attractive ones with the noisy and busy commercial streets. The newly established martial arts city was the untouched new continent, and the merchants and companies that got the news in advance were all scrambling to get inside like sharks smelling the scent of flesh and blood. In the super square in the center of the city, a huge statue of 100 meters high towering in the image of Son Goku. There was one such statue in the center of every city, only the image varies. In order to build 12 martial arts cities, the government was determined to search for thousands of martial arts schools from all over the world and hired nearly 10,000 martial artists to serve as martial arts instructors. The great martial arts schools such as Turtle School, Crane School, and King Chappa Temple competed with each other. Today, the Goku City was officially opened, and everything went into normal operation. With the opening of Goku City, martial arts enthusiasts from all over the world rushed to the major martial arts schools to register for martial arts training. Most of these martial arts enthusiasts were young people, including many students like people. In order to fully develop the city of martial arts, Goku City was built with not only a large number of martial arts schools but also opened schools of varying sizes and grades. At the lookout, there were 2 columns of shade. Ayaka closed her eyes to recuperate, smoothly reclining on a bench next to Ayaba, Android 17 and 18 lazily arranged in a row, wearing sunglasses to enjoy the delicate mildness of the sun. Not far away on the ground, a toddler with a peculiar haircut toddling and creeping on the ground, the girl was like I am, clapping his hands while coaxing and teasing. The child was Son Goku's second child, Son Rashi. Ayam was especially fond of this little cousin. From time to time, she ran to tease him. Goku, the martial arts school, has been built, but how do we instruct them all? Yamaha hugged his knees and sat on the steps of the lookout. Son Goku rubbed his head and laughed, I don't know, their level is too low, I don't know how to teach them. Well, when it comes to teaching students, old Grandpa Rashi is the most expert, should we ask him? Well, that's the only way. Kakarot, I'm busy cultivating. I don't have time to do those boring things. Vegeta coldly snorted. Son Goku agreed to the lower realm ordinary people's request without his permission, which made him very dissatisfied. Among the purebred Saiyans present only, he was not Super Saiyan 2. The last few days, he actually vaguely felt the hope of a breakthrough. How could he use the time to teach mortals? It was meaningless things. Ayaka propped up the upper body. Both of her shoulders were bare white delicate skin, and a single flaxen ponytail was down to the waist. You don't need to worry about that. The first thing you need to do is explain the concept of ki and leave the rest to them. You don't need to interfere. Those who really have potential, let them climb the Korin Tower. Tell them that only after climbing the Korin Tower and gaining the approval of the immortal Korin can they receive your personal instruction. If you see people who are qualified to go to the lookout, then accept them as disciples. Yes, Son Goku's eyes lit up. First, he needed to let the martial arts school martial artists climb the Korin Tower, and by their own power, so he could eliminate some people. Not only would it save a lot of work, but it also is conducive to the selection of talent. At this time, Krillin tiptoed over, embarrassedly rubbing his palms, and said, I don't know if everyone is free in a few days. I have a very important thing to announce. What is it? Well, that, in 2 days, I'm going to get married. I hope you can all come. Marriage. Everyone was astonished. Ayaka's eyes rolled and asked, how come we don't know anything about you getting married, and who's your date? Krillin's face turned red, squirming and embarrassed. Hey, it's Violet. The first thing they needed to do was to get a good idea of who he was getting into. Violet, is the previous Red Ribbon Legion's Colonel Violet? Android 18 asked suspiciously. Android 18 knew that Violet was actually not difficult to understand. In order to defeat Son Goku, Dr. Gero did a detailed investigation of the people around him. Violet, as a former Colonel Violet of the Red Ribbon Army, there was a separate stack of information about her. Just after the death of Dr. Gero, Android 18 crossed the line with the Red Ribbon Army. Violet was an ordinary human in the school district, and was not on her mind. After learning the news that Krillin was going to marry Violet, the information about her only vaguely surfaced. Android 18 was somewhat surprised to look at the small bald head in front of him. The clean face revealed a wonderful smile. Even though the small bald head martial art was not good, he could not imagine that there was quite a set, unknowingly abducted Colonel Violet. It seemed like he had a good mouth. Watching Android 18's derisive expression, Ayaka then showed a strange expression. She guessed more or less what Android 18 had in mind, except that the original Krillin's skills in picking up girls should be used on her. She wondered what the expression of Android 18 would be when she found out. Krillin embarrassingly laughed. I wanted to tell you guys earlier, but because of Cell's matter, it got delayed. The wedding was held in Kame House. You must come. We have known each other for so many years, of course we will go to your wedding. Well, there are also Tien Shinhan and Kaiotsu, who will go get them. I'll go get them, using instant transmission will be quick. Son Goku wagged his finger and said. The group nodded in unison. Son Goku's instant transmission was incredibly convenient, and besides being useful in battle, it was also very useful in everyday life. Next, the group discussed what to give as a gift at the wedding. Ayaka watched quietly, the corners of her mouth curved in a quiet arc, recalling the scene of her first meeting with Krillin. At that time, Krillin could not withstand the bullying of his brothers, escaped from the mountain, thousands of miles to find the Kame House to worship Master Roshi as a teacher. Master Roshi made a problem for him and asked him to bring a beautiful girl back, and then he found Launch, but she picked him up before bringing him to the Kame House. After all those years, Krillin became one of the toughest people on Earth, successful and famous, and would soon be married. Thinking about the past, Ayaka could not help but think of Launch and Lancey in the northern part of the North area. They had been outside helping the North Kai manage the North area for many years. Although they had often returned in the past few years, it was strange to miss them after being apart for so long. I will leave it to you to inform the acquaintances on Earth. Launch and Lancy have not returned for a long time in the North area. I will go to call them and see how the North area is developing by the way. Sister is leaving the Earth. Take me with you. Ayaba looked interested. She was alone in the original world, without developing cosmic power, and now when she heard that Ayaka was leaving Earth she was eager to go with her to see. Ayaka pondered for a moment, nodded in agreement, and saw that Ayam had glowing eyes and wanted to follow, so she said, I will leave for half a day, Ayaba, and I will go. Android 17, 18, Ayam, you all stay on the lookout. Android 17 and 18 also wanted to see outside the Earth. Hearing Ayaka's words, they could not help but some disappointed, oh. Ayam plead, but when she met with Ayaka's stern gaze, she immediately knew that there was no chance. Glancing at a smug Ayaba, indignantly grunted. Ayaka a smile, taking Ayaba's hand to launch the instant transmission, the two quickly disappeared from the lookout. The deep, quiet universe, the strange void was suffocatingly quiet, except for those stars burning in the sky far away, only some off-track blindly stray stars that would perish at some point. In the dark, deep night, no one could tell what was hidden there, like a huge fierce beast flashing eerie eyes, prostrate on the side. Since the demise of the Frozen clan, the North area gradually integrated into the new North Power jurisdiction. A few years down the road, even the chaotic and remote areas of the Western Galaxy also calmed down and settled down. With the Tree of Might fruit, the girls quickly pulled up by more than 20 people to form a powerful army, under the command of Castro, Ronner, Anti-Ski, Zamboni, a few personal guards. The Spirit Leaf forces were as powerful as ever, basically ruling the entire North area. Together with the North Kai's secret planning, the northern area was a thriving scene. This also made North Kai, who had been in an awkward position, gradually straighten his back among the four realm kings. In the northern part of the North area, the Spirit Leaf planet. In the control center that shone with colorful brilliance, Castro led his subordinates to review the data passed from all over the world. He was glad that he had chosen to follow Her Majesty the Queen. Since he joined the Spirit Leaf planet, his status had changed drastically, from being the manager of a planet to a powerful figure above all others. Since Her Majesty the Great Empress eliminated the Frozen clan, the Spirit Leaf planet's strength had expanded wildly, and now it managed more than 90% of the North area, making it the premier superpower in the galaxy. There was a shake in the void. Two enchanting and beautiful young girls appeared. Because Ayaka appeared openly without hiding the key, Castro first reacted instinctively, and when he looked up to see who was coming, he stood up. Respectfully salute, Our Majesty. However, who was this young girl beside the Queen who looked exactly the same as the Queen? Was she the Queen's sister? His heart was appalled. He was like a little dust in the vast night sky in front of her. Ayaka nodded lightly, fixed her eyes. She knew that Castro's strength had reached 250,000. In addition, she sensed that there were nearly 10 high-intensity energy on the Spirit Leaf planet. All above and below 200,000, should be left on the Leaf Spirit Planet Protection Legion. This value was insignificant to her, but in the universe, it was already a rare master. Where are Launch and Lancy? Ayaka asked. Although it was also possible to sense directly, but the universe was so big that it was not as convenient as asking directly. Some time ago there was a little chaos in the western part of the North area. The two adults followed Kai delegated to suppress. Ayaka was a little surprised, then understood that the western part of the North area was not ruled by a powerful being, and had always been loose and disorderly. In the past, when the North area was ruled by the Frozen clan, the western region of loose disorder had been considered a rare happy land, but compared to now, it had become a representative of chaos. Kai should also want to unify the western region as soon as possible. Ayaka looked around the busy crowd, said admiringly, very good, to be able to manage the Spirit Leaf forces in order. You guys are a great credit. Castro revealed a smile. Her Majesty's praise was very flattering to him. Well, since the girls are not here we won't bother much. You guys keep up the good work. Ayaka said reluctantly and looked to Ayaba. Let's go to the western region. After Ayaka disappeared, Castro saluted respectfully toward the location where they had disappeared, then perked up and urged his men to continue their work. The Queen's affirmation refreshed him. His position was being consolidated day by day. In the western part of the North area, many light years away from the northwestern planet Cuyus, which she had once visited. Somewhere in the dark red glow of the star system, on a grass-green planet, two warriors were facing each other, and the cosmonauts in armor were wielding their energy cannons. Crystal-bright columns of energy shot out from the energy generators of the arms. Boom boom boom, the sand flew away, relentless energy through the battlefield, a cluster of 4 or 5 meters high fortress violently shaking, collapsed. War was a giant crusher that engulfed life, mercilessly devouring a living life, accompanied by the cruel hiss of a ferocious beast, and everything in front of him was about to be destroyed. The war continued, and a large number of people fell, stepping on the bodies of their companions and enemies, as men and horses from both sides continued to fight, miserably. The sound of shelling and wails of pain came continuously. 10,000 meters high in the sky, a large and two figures gazed down. The broad and rugged figure rubbed his chin and laughed evilly. "Raditz, those people down there are really fragile, my lord doesn't even have the desire to make a move." The long-haired man with a skinny figure skimmed his lips, revealed a smile and snickered. "Miss Launch has given us this galaxy to pacify. If we don't complete the task on schedule, the crime is not small. Can you stand Miss Launch's wrath?" Nappa smiled sarcastically. He naturally did not dare to disobey Miss Launch's order. "Alas, then let's take action. These guys clean up in minutes." Ayaka, for the sake of the same Saiyan, gave them each a tree of might fruit, and then let them manage the administrative planet. With the quality of the fighting people, after years of hard work, the two have 1.5 million power level. Unlike Krillin and others who had received the sacred water transformation, Nappa and Raditz qualifications, 1.5 million power level was almost the limit. Compared with the past Saiyans, it was already a mythical and powerful existence. Super Saiyan was not what every Saiyans could achieve. The strength of Nappa and Raditz was naturally not weak. However, there was a huge difference between them and a Super Saiyan like Son Goku. It was impossible to compare them, but it was extremely easy to deal with the weaker alien below. As soon as the two of them entered the battlefield, they entered a state where there was no one around. Pa! Pa! The sounds of fighting rang out. Their movements were cool and relaxed, and their attacks flowed like water. The aliens below didn't even notice their figures before they fell to the ground. The people of both sides fought for territory and invested a large number of troops for this. There was no lack of experts among them. When they saw their subordinates fall for no reason, they instinctively felt that something was wrong. After carefully examining the battlefield, they didn't find the person who attacked. Some of the experts' faces immediately darkened. There should be experts that were so strong that they couldn't even sense them entering the battlefield. On the battlefield, holding a handkerchief, grinned and laughed wildly. The fists in his hands danced wildly, and immediately, violent whirlwinds rolled up. The edges of the whirlwinds were extremely sharp, like blades that were as thin as cicada wings. Wherever the fist wind passed, the head would fly in all directions, and the people would fall. It's much more straightforward. Unfortunately, these guys are too useless. They can't even take a punch from me. I can't enjoy myself to my heart's content. There are a few energy reactions over there that are stronger. They should be the main force. We must complete what Miss Launch told us to do. Let's get rid of them. All right. Nappa agreed readily, and with a sway of his body, he charged straight towards the enemy's base camp. In the base camp, a few universe people with sharp horns on their heads were watching the battle in the distance with solemn expressions. They were the commanders of this battle, and they were also the most powerful universe people. It was originally a battle between the two sides, but there were a few more disruptors for no reason, and they seemed to be extremely powerful. An alien who seemed to be the commander had blue eyes and a fierce expression on his face. He roared in a low voice, what exactly is going on? Who is going against us, the people from the Ceados? The people from the Spirit Leaf planet are also the targets of their attack. At the same time, they are taking action against both of us. The reason why the other party is here is unknown. It is most likely a force from outside the star system. In the nearby star systems, our planet Ceados and the people from the Red Shadow planet are the most powerful. Which force dares to provoke us? Are they not afraid of the anger of the two forces? A military deputy said with a puzzled expression. The western region of the North area was a mix of good and bad. There were more than 100 forces of different sizes. The planets they were in belonged to the most powerful planet Ceados and the Red Shadow planet. The two forces had been fighting for thousands of years. There had been endless battles and battles. It had always been difficult to determine who was stronger. The planets that existed in the war zone were more like war fortresses. Other than the military forces of both sides, there were no native residents at all. A thin staff officer kept thinking with a low face, analyzing the possible enemies that might appear. He remembered that many forces had been annexed and destroyed recently, and his expression changed greatly. He cried out in horror, "We have been targeted by the super forces of the North area." The commander asked, "What do you mean?" Not long ago, a super force rose up in the North area, the Spirit Leaf forces. They had as many experts as the clouds, and even the Frozen clan had been wiped out by them. In just a few years, they ruled most of the galaxies. Are you saying that Spirit Leaf force is going to attack us? Did they extend their tentacles over here? The commander quickly understood and his face turned pale. The power of Spirit Leaf force could not be compared to theirs. The other party was a super force that ruled the North area, while he was only one of the hundreds of forces in the West. It's highly possible. Even we can't find an expert. He must be a rare expert. We don't have one in this star sector, and there is no other possibility other than Spirit Leaf force, the deputy commander said with an ugly expression. Pa! A series of applause sounded. Looking up, Latz floated in the air, looking at them with a smile in his eyes. His fluffy long hair swayed left and right under the breeze. Seeing the eye-catching red and white combat suit, everyone gasped. It really was Spirit Leaf force who were going to attack them. You have a good mind. You can actually guess our identity. Raditz shook his head in admiration, then announced in an unquestionable tone, "I believe you all should know our rules. The forces of the people of the Red Shadow planet will be disbanded from today on, so we can only retain the basic defense of the planet." This is impossible. The commander of the people of the Red Shadow planet immediately retorted. Raditz shook his head regretfully and said expressionlessly, "If the negotiations break down, then according to Miss Launch's instructions, we will destroy the upper echelons of the forces of the people of the planet." When the upper echelons of the people of the planet heard this, their expressions changed drastically. This should have happened a long time ago. Holding his arms confidently, he floated down. He took out his detector and began to scan. Noticing the data displayed on the lens, his rough face outlined a smile. Not bad. The highest combat power is 40,000, and the rest are not less than 10,000. We can move a little. Whoa! Nappa released his aura. For a moment, the earth shook, and a suffocating terrifying pressure swept out. The upper echelons of the Red Shadow planet people were the first to bear the brunt of it. Facing the shocking aura released by Handkerchief, they actually felt dizzy and despair rose in their hearts. The aliens who were still awake on the battlefield in the distance were shocked and could not help but shiver. Boom! Nappa waved his hand. 1.5 million power level against a universe person with only 20,000 to 30,000 power level had no suspense at all. In just a few moves, most of the higher-ups went to meet the King Yama. The hearts of the remaining commanders trembled as they prostrated on the ground and begged for mercy, "My lord, we are willing." Before he could finish speaking, the iron fist in his hand fell down and smashed them into meat paste. Raditz frowned in displeasure and complained, "They are about to surrender. Why did you still kill them?" "Huh, I couldn't control myself for a while. Didn't Miss Launch say that we should get rid of them as soon as possible? Wouldn't it be better to kill all of their higher-ups?" Nappa smirked without a care. Raditz was a little speechless. "Up to you. There are still those guys from the Red Shadow planet. After completing the mission, go back and report back." In a galaxy countless light years away, Launch watched the scene outside through the observation tower of the universe ship. There were more than 1,000 universe battleships firing outside. White and red energy cannons pierced through the universe, and there would occasionally be spaceships exploding. After destroying this battle team, the western region of the North area basically has no more force to resist. The western region was chaotic, and the various great forces were uneven. They did not have any sense of good and evil, and they were just like the endless chaotic battles of warlords. After the Super Battle Court destroys the armies of the large and small forces and complete the mission given to us by North Kai, we can return to Earth. Lancey said with a smile. "I heard from North Kai that an extremely terrifying fellow had appeared on Earth not long ago. It seems to be called Cell. Even Ayaka was almost no match for him." Lancey leaned against the support of the corridor. Yes, even North Kai was nervous for a long time, but in the end, he still managed to eliminate the other party. Lancey and Launch were highly skilled. A few years ago, they needed to combine their bodies to defeat Metal Cooler. Now, their individual strength had increased, and they were already on par with Android 17 and Android 18. However, the gap between them and Son Goku was still wide open. Launch was the most powerful existence in Spirit Leaf Planet apart from Ayaka. After guarding North Area for a few years, Spirit Leaf Force was full of confidence. Only then did she expand everywhere without any scruples. When Cell was playing the game, Ayaka considered Cell's strength and was completely confident to deal with it, so she did not let them come back. Reality proved that her arrangements were correct. Cell game was changing rapidly. Not only did the lightning-type Cell appear, but also the green-colored Cell was unexpectedly born. Fortunately, Ayaba had arrived, and the two strength cables were raging. They worked together to destroy the azure-colored Cell. The gunfire outside intertwined, and the dazzling halo was like blooming flowers in the black starry sky. In an instant, it blossomed with a full-sleeve fragrance. Seeing that the warships outside could not attack for a long time, Launch frowned and ordered the universe people around her, "Pass down my order, have all our warships retreat." "You want to personally take action?" Launch asked with a smile. "The other party is not strong, but there are too many warships. There is no point in fighting like this, it will only increase the casualties." After receiving the order to retreat, the commanders of the warships quickly followed the order and the spaceship quickly retreated. They had encountered such things many times. This meant that the powerful Miss Launch was going to personally take action. The strength of Miss Launch had already been determined in their hearts. He was a terrifying existence second only to the Queen. They had once seen Miss Launch take action. The scene was shocking and had been deeply engraved in their souls. If they did not quickly withdraw from Miss Launch's attack range, they would lose their lives. Seeing that their fleet had basically retreated, Launch instantly moved to the front of the enemy warship. In the vast universe, Launch's delicate body was as small as an ant in front of the enemy warship. The protective cover was opened, and immediately formed a 3 cm thick energy circle with a sparkling luster on the surface of the body. This was the ability that was given to her by Yardration. She could survive in the universe for a short period of time. Spirit Leaf's warship has retreated, and we won this war. You still say that North Area is the strongest strength, but you still beat us back. In my opinion, that Spirit Leaf force is just a paper tiger. Except for a few high-energy experts, he is not scary at all. Let's catch up together and open up the territory for our Bobodo planet. These so-called wave multi-star alien clamored, thinking that Spirit Leaf Force had been beaten back, but they turned a blind eye to the appearance of launch. They lived in a corner of the West. They had never seen the power of a super expert. In their knowledge, how could flesh and blood be a match for a steel warship?